Okay, so Alex, there's such a thing. Um, there's a saying that says some birds jump out of the nest, jump out of the tree, and learn how to fly on the way down. And that's essentially what you did, right?
I definitely say that's fair. Yeah, absolutely.
That's fair. So I want to talk about the way that kind of moved about and relocated. You up, packed up, relocated to a place you knew nothing about, and so we're going to get into that. But first and foremost, I guess I should ask you, where did you jump on the business scene? When did you become an entrepreneur, or kind of when did that bug bite you?
The bug bought me, yeah, the bug bit me pretty early on. I was a snowboarder. I grew up in North Idaho, and I kind of got the hang of snowboarding and getting sponsors. I kind of felt like being an entrepreneur, you really had to sell yourself. But I was an employee that whole time, and it wasn't until 3 years ago that I actually, put that into practice. I'd say there would be kind of odd jobs throughout college and stuff where I was a little bit of an entrepreneur, but yeah, I started my business, my first real business, 3 years ago, while living in Mexico. And then I started a second business, and I'm about to have a third business actually now. So it's kind of just snowballed. I feel like I'm really meant for this. It's not an easy task to start being an entrepreneur by any means at any point in life, but for some reason I just love the challenge, man. I really do. You're on mute, buddy.
Someone who's competitive like yourself, I know that entrepreneurship is a competitive sport. They say it's a gladiator sport. They describe it as a gladiator sport. So, if you're competitive, you're really trying to win. Um, so you started 3 years ago in the entrepreneurial lane. So what was your first business? Tell us, a little bit about the first.
Yes, I spent the last I spent 10 years at Microsoft and then Amazon collectively. So I had always wanted to just use time at a big company like that to get some credibility so I could start a business. And I got a little sucked into the cushy paycheck and the easy lifestyle. But when COVID happened, um, I was able to, leave the nest per se, which was Seattle at that time. My first nest I had to leave was Idaho. I had to go to Seattle just to even get a real job. And I climbed the ladder, got my 10 years at corporate. And then, I'm not the guy that wanted to be in a city. I wanted, to travel the world. I wanted freedom, but the paycheck was nice, right? And it felt kind of like I was chained in there. And then COVID happened, so I moved back to Idaho for a year. I got into this happened during COVID a lot, a bad breakup. A 4 year relationship ended, and I think my sister told me, she goes, "You've been a depressed sad boy for like 4 months. You got to get the hell out of here." So I decided to go visit a friend in Mexico, and that I was supposed to come down here for 2 months. My passport said 2 month visa, and it's been 4 years. Don't worry, I'm not illegal. I got my residency. I fixed that, but yeah, that's kind of how I got my start down here, jumping the nest. And in doing that, you couldn't stay at corporate very long, right? Living in another country, Amazon at the time was where I was working, and they were really trying to get me back. So I needed to. It was kind of the kick in the butt that I needed to make my dreams happen. The whole plan was a creative business. So I started off by creating a consulting business around the one skill I had learned over 10 years, which is customer success. Essentially, taking care of customers, existing customers, and growing the relationship with those existing customers. So that's one skill I had. And a client that I had worked with through Amazon, a vendor, he told me, "Alex, you're really good at this. You should just do some consulting for businesses." And I owe it to him giving me that advice. I started a company called Huckleberry Consulting, which in hindsight is probably not the best name. But it's you know, growing up in North Idaho, there's huckleberries all over the place, so it means a lot to me. Yeah, so that was my first business, and I still have it today, and it's doing well. But yeah, the name probably wasn't the best choice.
I didn't, I never thought about Huckleberry in that sense. I
Yeah,
always, when someone bring up Huckleberry, I always think of Wyatt Earp.
Val
And
Kilmer. Yeah,
yeah, Val Kilmer. So in that sense, that's a pretty good name in that sense, And I'm from Texas, so there's a lot
oh,
of
okay.
Western country stuff here,
Yeah,
so it made sense to me.
yeah,
But that's
yeah.
cool.
Most people are they think a Huckleberry fan, right? And then they think, oh, kind of like a stupid guy, and maybe that book doesn't have the best, like background. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little tough one for me to
I get
get
it.
over sometimes.
I get it. I get it. So with that, the consulting aspect of it,
Yeah.
when you moved to Mexico and you became a consultant, business consultant, now are you consulting businesses in the States or are you consulting businesses in Mexico?
I'm consulting businesses in the States. That's how I started off, mainly e-commerce businesses. So 5 years running a big part of the show at Amazon in the retail business. There's a lot of experience that could be valuable. So there's a lot of e-commerce companies in the U.S. that really found it useful to figure out how to improve their relationship with either their vendors or improve the experience of their customers, which is my expertise.
Okay. So while we're on the subject, um, let's talk about a little bit about becoming an expat
Mm.
in another country and being able to work from that company. There's a new trend going on. I don't know if you've heard of it. I don't know if it's a trend or not, or if it's a staple. And it's called passport bros. Have you
Oh, I
heard of
heard
that?
that. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of people, what I've noticed, there's a lot of people, the number one question that's being answered is how do I travel? How do I go to another place and live?
Mm.
So, from your standpoint, how possible is that? Like, what all do you need to set up? How do you make that happen?
Yeah, it's a lot easier than people think. I think the biggest barrier is, especially for us Americans, we have to get over the mental. I would hate to say prison. There's a little bit of like a mental prison that the new negative news cycle traditionally creates. So just go check an area out. Go on a long vacation with a one-way ticket. And I know that sounds scary, just going with the one-way ticket, but do it. Get it along. There's Airbnbs where you can get deals for extended stays. Do something like that. I intended to come down here for 2 months, and it's been 4 years, right? So I think all you have to do is, as an American, we're going to get taxed no matter what. Even if we, live out of the country for, the rest. If I live out of the country for the rest of my life, I have to pay American taxes. So that part's not going to change. Um, However, there is a little tax loop where the first, let's say, $115,000, if I spend less than 30 days in the States, doesn't get taxed, which is pretty cool. But in terms of like how does it work, you can still create an LLC in the U.S. You can still incorporate your business in the U.S. Most people choose a state that is um, you know convenient, based off of what they're trying to accomplish and is friendly with their business laws. For me, it made sense to choose Wyoming, which there's a lot of companies that choose Wyoming. And then you can even set up a mailing inbox in a certain state, and that's another fee. It's just a service. Companies out there have a service. So I use First Base. I'm not affiliated with them by any means. First Base, you can set up an incorporation, you can get a mailing inbox, and boom, you have a U.S. company, and you can live outside the states. For me, it works great because I have an online company. If I had a physical company, it'd be a lot harder for me to do. It's not impossible, as long as you have the right team in place. But yeah, it's really about just getting your company incorporated and then going through the hurdles of just starting a business, which is kind of going to be the same if you're doing it in the States or outside the States.
Right. Understood. What about, can you tell us a little bit about technology? I know a
Mm,
lot of our mindset is, of course, we're connected, we're well connected, and probably look at other places as not being as connected. So how does technology work to where you're not really concerned about, your Wi-Fi going bad or being disconnected?
I mean, I live in Playa del Carmen. I chose an area that this is not real Mexico. This is like American Mexico almost. You could joke about that. It's a super great. It's a really great infrastructure. If you look at common entrepreneur or expat places, you're gonna find a lot of places in Portugal, all throughout Mexico, like San Miguel de Allende, Mexico City, Puerto Vallarta, Costa Rica. There's every country is going to have certain places that are really good expat hubs. So people have already done the research for you, and the infrastructure is there. And in a lot of places, the internet is just as good or better than the U.S. It's definitely going to be cheaper than the U.S. You'll start to find out that a lot of the money, or a lot of the charges that you get in the U.S., whether it's for a Netflix bill or internet bill, it's all priced up because we're in the U.S., right? But in terms of quality, you're going to receive the same quality. So it's not a hurdle to get over.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And I'm glad I have you on my show to speak about it because I see so many people asking these questions.
Yeah, I didn't know that people were having these questions. It's a lot easier than it seems.
Yeah, I see. I understand what you're saying. When you said that other people have already done the research and there are expat hubs. So when you are in Playa del Carmen, there's already people that look like you, speak like you, talk like you, know about United States.
Thousands, yeah, thousands of me. I'd say in Playa del Carmen, there's a lot of Canadians. That's kind of the funny thing. And then like the west coast of Mexico, so like Puerto Vallarta, there's a lot of Americans, but there's still a lot of Americans here. There's a lot of Europeans here. Um, yeah, but there's people that have been here for 20 years doing this, right?
Wow.
So I'm definitely not on the forefront by any means. I was on the forefront of my life, right? Like I was pushing new boundaries for my own comfort level, but yeah, I think it's just a mental hurdle that we as Americans need to get over. And so I think the best choice is pick a location, maybe do a little research where there are a lot of expats, and get a one-way ticket and get an Airbnb for an extended stay, a minimum like a month, right? Maybe I'd suggest doing 2 months to really feel it out, and don't plan on being on vacation. Plan on working on your laptop, and you'll figure out really fast how easy it is to do.
I like that. I like what you just said. Don't plan on being on vacation. Like
Yeah.
you still have to work.
Yeah. It's a learning curve, man. It's really when you move to a new place, you want to be on vacation. You really
Right.
do, but you have to get over that. You have to have discipline
Right.
to do it. And if you don't, you're gonna find out that your time wherever you decided to choose is gonna be pretty limited because you have to get back to reality, and because you're not making reality wherever you are.
Exactly. Exactly. Even if you're in the States, if you're
Yep.
partying too much here,
Yep.
it's the same thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just so you can maybe encourage some listeners that may be listening, you found a wife, and
Yeah.
you really begin to live this life. Um, you're totally intrigued, engulfed in this life, and which I think is awesome because, like I say, you jumped out the nest, learned to fly, and became married and became one with the lifestyle. And like you say, you're continuing to have businesses, make businesses, and she has a business as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, you're correct. She's a successful entrepreneur and has been for quite some time. She is kind of an OG, I guess, in the space, right? Of like entrepreneur founders for outsourcing companies. I came here. I met my wife. I thought I was gonna be some playboy coming in here to get over a broken heart, and I met my wife on my second day. I didn't have it in me to go meet girls, but she's from the Philippines and she was living in Mexico already. And I had a few friends here. We went to a mutual dinner, and she was there. I made my move long story short, and I think 2 years later we got married, and now I'm spending half of the year in Mexico and half the year in the Philippines. We have physical businesses in the Philippines. We have properties in both Mexico and the Philippines, and online businesses. And literally 5 years ago, I was, a guy from Idaho originally, just trying to make it in Seattle, but I hated it, right? And I never thought I was going to be able to do anything else. That was how small my world was, and so it's completely possible. It's you just gotta go out there and just test the waters and see how much more you can accomplish, and get out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Hey, Alex, that's an awesome story, man. Um, this show, this show kind of speaks about mindset and expanding your mindset to all possibilities. And I think you just spoke on that. You definitely are speaking to that particularly. And it's awesome how just because you put one foot in front of the other, how all of these things just start showing up in your life. And I think if we just avoid all limitations, I think we can all have those same type of stories. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I thought I was I thought I was gonna be, never accomplishing my goal of living out of the country for a year, never starting the business that I thought I would. It was all shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? And I was just gonna grow old and kind of do the same things. And it sometimes the disruption in life, which for me was a breakup, caused me to explore some of the unknown and get out of my comfort zone. And that was the first step, right? That was the putting one foot in front of another. And everything I've wanted in life has seemingly, come to fruition because I took that first step and continued to take those first steps.
Yeah. Awesome. Round of applause for taking that first step.
Thank you.
Let's discuss business number two. When did that begin? And tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So I started hearing from the companies I was consulting for that they want a customer success manager, which is just someone who works with their existing clients, who manages that relationship and isn't bombarded with trying to sell them something, but is just their sole focus is ensuring that they have a really great experience and fostering that relationship. So that's what a customer success manager is. And I had hired and built out customer success manager teams for 5 years at Amazon. And that was my specialty. I love doing that. So I started to do one-off placements for companies because they found it difficult to find customer success managers, or they found it difficult to find the right person. And that spurred into my next company, which was getcsm.com. And we just do direct placement for customer success managers. So we'll go find a customer success manager that is completely suitable for your company, whatever product or service it is, fitting your culture. And then if you would rather not, directly place someone, maybe you don't have the budget for a US salary, maybe you don't have the ability to pay someone out of the country for a lower wage, or you just don't want the burden of HR, we actually provide fully managed outsourcing options too. So we'll find people from Latin America, where we currently live, or the Philippines, where we live half the year, right? And we'll actually place customer success managers and in your role, provide them upskill training throughout their entire time. And because I'm a little bit of a nerd for my industry, so I'm happy to kind of give them training throughout their time with your company. Yeah, and take care of all the HR stuff. So you just work with them as your teammate.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you basically took Amazon's structure and created it basically because clients that you already have or had kind of this was a need.
Yep.
And you recognize this need, and so now you're providing customer success managers.
Correct. Yeah, and that business has actually taken off. The Get CSM business is really started to take off because it's a problem. People know how to hire, for their teams, but for this one particular position, it's kind of a dual position, and either someone gets in the role and they want to move somewhere else, they use it as a jumping off point, or they get burnt out. It's really hard to find those people, and I somehow gained the skill, through my years at Amazon hiring that exact position to identify the right people for that. So there's a problem, and I know the solution. So that means there's a company, right? Whenever there's a solution for a problem, there's a company, for that exact issue.
Oh, yes, definitely. And an entrepreneur's job is to find them.
Yep, exactly.
So let me ask you this. What is your avatar? What size does the company have to be for you to work with them, and what type of, you said e-commerce, but like what size?
Yeah, I've moved on just working with e-commerce. I'm working with service B2B service-based businesses and SaaS as well. But traditionally, a company usually has to be around about the $300,000 ARR range, so annual recurring revenue. So really not asking for anything too big. I personally like to take that big Amazon structure and help out companies implement that at early days so they can actually scale faster. And then I do have one-off situations where I'm working with some maybe like big furniture companies that I have that you would recognize the brand if we talked about it, and they're in Costco's and stuff like that. But those are companies that I've worked with prior to Amazon. Right now, I'm really focused on working with the smaller team. So right around 300 or 200, let's say 250 ARR to 3 million is that kind of that sweet spot, because I can really change things for them. I can set them up for success and like make them customer centric culture versus trying to change an existing culture and make them customer centric. It's much harder to do. It's definitely doable, but I enjoy being able to actually shape this at early days. So the customer experience and the company sees the value right away. And when they grow big, they're already providing that great customer experience, and it's actually coming from a place of value. They already see the value.
Awesome. With that, speaking a little bit about marketing strategy, are you more of a outbound marketing or an inbound marketing guy?
I'm an inbound guy. I love inbound. Yeah.
Okay, they coming to find you, right?
Yeah. I went to school for advertising, which is the weirdest thing, Rashid. Like I went to school, I have a bachelor's degree in advertising, and I'm an inbound guy now. I don't know how that switch happened, but yeah, I'm a true believer in it.
Yeah. Digital marketing made it happen. I went to school for marketing as well. And up until COVID, I was a door-to-door knocker, flyer passing out person. And then when COVID hit, it was all about inbound and finding out about funnels and digital marketing.
I used to work at Yellow Pages, by the way. So I was doing a lot of the door knocking too, out all throughout the Seattle area. We were selling digital advertising, trying to get them onto the Yellow Pages rebranded to YP. So we're selling advertising on YP, and those are actually some of the funnest days. It was a challenge, right? Like, this guy was actually pretty hard, so he shut me down quick. So next week I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a yes, right? Like it was
right.
Okay.
Yeah, those were the days that made you who you are today. Definitely. Yeah, man, fun times. So what's keeping you motivated, Alex? What's at this moment in time, what's keeping you motivated?
My wife and I decided to try to have kids. It's been a long goal of mine to be a dad. So my biggest motivation right now is to get these companies to a point where I have really good staff growing with the businesses, taking care of them. And my wife has a very successful business right now. And for her to become the mom that she wants to not be, in the driver's seat with those companies. So I need to take over that company too. There's a lot on my plate. 3 years ago, I was an employee, And now I have 2 companies, and I'm about to, have 3, one of them being significantly bigger than the other 2. And so my motivation is to stay laser focused so I can be a dad for the first time. I can give my wife everything she deserves. So really it's family is my motivation right now.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And it will probably segue to my next point, which is the future.
Oh
How
yeah.
how big do you see this thing growing? What's next?
Yeah, my wife, she has an expensive taste, so it's gotta have to get pretty big. Yeah, I think my wife and I have a number in our head where we're comfortable with, but I want we have one business. Her business is already a 7-figure business. I would like both of my businesses to be 8-figure businesses, and I think we're not looking to be billionaires by any means, but we both come from poor backgrounds, so um, there's motivation, right, to in order to be pretty successful. So maybe that's not a direct answer. Maybe we haven't figured that out completely, but I think 8 figures for each of the companies is totally reasonable. But there's something in me that thinks because of our backgrounds, it's going to be hard to stop, right? To say that's enough because there's something in your when you grow up in a poor background where you just want to succeed and it just doesn't stop.
No, I get it. That's a great answer. And money is a motivation.
Yeah.
It's definitely money is definitely motivation. Um, but I think at some point, even coming from a background, there's a point to where you can fail and be comfortable,
Yeah.
and then leave your legacy in a sense. Find a way to leave your legacy. I think that's where comfort comes from most people, especially from poor backgrounds. Um, kind of, okay, I've made mine, and let me help someone else out.
Yeah, we recently started doing a really small mastermind group for exclusively for 5 Filipinos a year to scale their business to $10,000, and that's been the most rewarding thing actually throughout our entire years. I love growing my business. I'm addicted to growing my business. It's really hard to step away every night. My wife is a workaholic as well, but there's something that's just been the most rewarding is hearing about how some of the students' businesses have been going and checking in with them. And so I totally agree. There's something about that innately in you where you want to bring everyone else up with you, right? With that background.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. 100% agree. And so, with that being said, I would like for you to tell anyone that's listening where to find you, how to find you, where to follow Alex.
Yeah, I keep it very simple. I'm on LinkedIn, and the rest is private. So LinkedIn is Alex Booth at Huckleberry. So dash Huckleberry. We have 2 websites. That's going to be consulthuckleberry.com and then getcsm.com for the outsourcing placement business, as you see on the screen here under my name.
Okay, okay. And Alex, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on to the show because you answered a lot of very important questions that I've even had myself because I see this online. I know that people, especially now, people like, I'm moving out of the United States. Like,
Yeah.
where else can I go? So there, and people are asking these questions, even if they don't just up and leave. Um, these are questions that you have answered today. So I want to thank you very much for that, and also your business sense of knowledge, um, and everything that you bring to the table as far as hope for anyone else that would like to put one foot in front of the other and jump out of the nest of their own.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the kind words too. It's always good coming on something like this and being able to share my story. It makes me want to do it a little bit more, and I appreciate you getting it out of me too.
Surely, man, surely. I know a lot of people come on and be a little nervous, and I'm like, okay, you know, I know how to ask the questions to make them get the story out of them, and it ends up going really well. And I kind of seen that in you, and you did a really good job.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So I want to let the crowd go, and anyone that's listening to this, like Alex said, just hit him up at any time, and rewatch this as many times as you can, so you can get the knowledge that you need to spread your wings and make the best of your situation.